breaks the clay in forgotten cemeteries where the old folks lie. Ropes and harness, dead of night, rebelling down the crypt without a light. Prying open marble doors where the wealthy dead were stored. Your mother's ring, your father's gold, but it ain't just jewelry that gets sold. They're taking bodies, bones and all, to private collectors down the hall, digging graves in potter's fields and descending crypts for higher yields. Victorian coffins pried apart, someone's great grandmother's sacred heart. Brass nameplates, wedding bands, skulls and femurs changing hands. 6 feet down or crypt sealed tight, both get violated at night. Digging up the dead for dollars, rappelling it into crypts like spies, selling bones to macabre buyers, someone's daughter, someone's sire. Bodies sold when the looting's done. What's wrong with you? What have we become? Grandfather's skull in a rich man's bowl. How do we get here? Lost our souls. Harness tight, descending slowly into family crypts below. Generations stacked in stone, now their inventory to belong. Some graves need shovels, quick and rough. Other sealing crypts need different stuff, but both end up the same way on collectors' shelves for sick display. Private buyers, anonymous sales, skeletons shipped through the mail. Authentic Victorian specimen, that's somebody's next of kin. Medical oddities, curiosity shops, the body trade never stops. Dark web auctions, cash exchange, great great grandpa's bones rearranged. How do we get here? Where death's a marketplace, where someone's loved one is the decor in your space. Dug from graves or crypts below, tibias and rib cages show. Mounted on your wall with pride, tell me how we justify. Shovel work for potters' graves, rope and harness for the crypts they save. eBay listings, antique human skull, Facebook groups, bone collectors pull. Instagram posts, new acquisition here. Reddit threads asking where to buy. Private collectors pay thousands for your ancestor, torn from the ground or lowered from crypts without a sound. They take the jewelry first, that's fast cash. Then they come back for the body stash. Femur sell for 300 each. Skulls with teeth within their reach. Complete skeletons, premium price to collectors who think death looks nice. Doesn't matter if you're dug or descended, your sacred rest gets violated and it. Digging up the dead for dollars, rappelling in a crypts like spies. Two-sided bones are collectibles, and death is a millionaire's choice in decor. Shovel in the ground, rope going down. How do we get here? Tell me how we got here.
Ladies, when you're getting into an Uber, it's very important to
Um,
find the child lock and
what
make
happened?
sure that the lock is actually unlocked.
Midnight shovel breaks the clay in forgotten cemeteries where the old folks lie. Ropes and harness, dead of night.
Live on the air, it's Trial Junkies United presents Justice After Dark with your host, Z.
Thank you, Doc. Well, that was fun. You all got a tip for trafficking. We don't
I
know
don't
how
know
that
where.
happened.
We have absolutely no idea.
But you can always use those tips. So there you go. I guess it was needed. Fowla and Irish Luna, thank you, my mods, for being here. Irish, go get some rest. I know you're tired. Ken Rosenberg, I'm not saying the last part. Love you, darling. Sleuthy sweetheart. Of course, my only fan, my brother over across the sea, and therapist, We're going to dive into this case. But let's welcome the trial junkies, the truth seekers, and the justice warriors. I'm Z, your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice, with my ride or die doc riding shotgun as we navigate the darkness where the predators hunt and the system fails. And we're ready to shine a light on the forgotten stories society prefers to leave buried. So buckle up. The path ahead grows bumpy as we lead you through another section of this nightmare they call the justice system. And tonight, we're going down a twisted, macabre path to a truly horrifying case. One that shows just how far depravity can go when someone views human remains not as people deserving dignity, but as commodities to collect and sell. Doc, are you ready for this one?
Ready? Yes.
I love it when Yoda comes to visit. Hellcat, thanks for joining us, darling. This one was wild. I have to say that when you see Jonathan Gerlach's mugshot, he looked like he stepped straight out of central casting in Hollywood, you guys. I mean, if you were directing a horror movie and you needed someone to play the grave robber, this is exactly what you'd picture. He fits the part perfectly. Like someone said, give me the most stereotypical grave robber you can imagine, and boom, there he is. But this is what makes this really more disturbing, you guys. According to the reports, this guy really was treating it like this is a business. Like he was pushing a cart down the Costco aisle, filling orders. Okay? Just casually strolling through a cemetery with his crowbar in his burlap bag, checking off his shopping list. Let me get 2 skulls here, and I need some hands over here and maybe some feet. And that's just sick, you guys.
I just want to grab onto that nose ring and tag him along. He's just yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, Sleuthy, that was his screen name. This guy's just not brilliant. And of course, you know how these kind of creeps, I don't like to leave their name for them. So we're just gonna call him the ghoul because back in the day, grave robbers were called ghouls. Sleuthy says, "Watch it, Doc. She's got a nose ring."
No.
I'm
Oops.
I'm
Sorry.
sure your I'm sure yours is cute. His you wanna pull,
Yeah.
okay? Um,
Doc is sorry.
and here's what gets me about the guy's audacity. He wasn't even trying to hide what he was doing. You guys, he left Monster energy drinks and cigarette butts at the crime scene, like he was on a lunch break. Just casually desecrating graves, having a smoke, chugging an energy drink, and moving on to the next one. He wasn't worried about getting caught. And you know why he wasn't worried? He had been arrested earlier in the fall of 2025. For what? For retail theft at a hardware store in East Earl Township. And what did he steal? His grave robbing toolkit. Because, why pay for it when you can just go ahead and take it? He had a headlamp, gloves, metal cutting wheel, and an LED rechargeable glow stick. Detectives identified these as tools commonly used for burglaries. So let that sink in. He's got his little toolkit. He literally stole the tools he needed to rob graves from a hardware store, got caught, charged with retail theft, and then just kept going.
Well, you don't buy stuff for doing the burglary. I mean, just that's just the way it is. It's too traceable.
Yeah.
But then again, you're not supposed to get caught either.
Well, Fala, he hasn't deleted anyone that we know of yet, but you never know.
Ah.
So, hey, at this time, let's hope not. Now, between that arrest where he stole his toolkit in January 6th, his phone pinged at Mount Moriah Cemetery 6 times between Halloween and Christmas Eve. He was so bold and so unconcerned about the consequences that he didn't even bother to pay for his grave robbing equipment. He just stole it and went right to work. So, my thought is, weren't you making enough money off your business that you started? And he even advertised he was starting an LLC. Yeah.
Hmm.
That tells you everything you need to know about how the justice system sometimes they didn't really connect some dots like what's this guy up to? I mean, someone steals a headlamp, gloves, metal cutting tools, and nobody says, "Hey, what you planning to do with this stuff?" I wish they could have stopped him then because maybe he wouldn't have violated more graves, you know?
If
Okay. Val is adding in her sarcasm.
what you gonna do? Steelhead.
Yeah. I mean, we laugh because if we didn't, we'd
Oh
cry.
my goodness, this is
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
it is. Hey, Julius Caesar, glad you joined us. So, um, let's talk about Mount Vernon or Mount Moriah Cemetery. Now, this cemetery, it's going to help if we kind of talk about it and explain it. It'll help make this crime even more devastating because this was established in 1855. Mount Moriah has been an inclusive final resting place for Philadelphia's diverse population. The historic cemetery spans almost 100 acres of prime real estate in Delaware County. That's thousands and thousands of bodies buried there over the generations. This cemetery welcomed everyone, people of all races, incomes, and they adapted to the changing burial needs of its community. It incorporated US military lots, Muslim burials, communal plots. This rolling landscape was meant to be a place of peace and dignity, you know? But here's the tragedy. The cemetery actually got abandoned by its owners. So only part of the cemetery is still being utilized today. In 2011, the Friends of Mount Moriah actually formed to restore this beautiful green space and make it accessible to families so they can visit their loved ones safely. And they've been really working hard to create a place where people can connect with nature, take walks, ride bikes, bird watch, and find serenity in the middle of this urban environment.
Wait a minute.
And
Wait a minute. That's something that that didn't. I guess I didn't know that before. Is that um, i- cemeteries are privately owned?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Now, when
okay.
they talk about a graveyard, I guess that usually refers to a graveyard is usually attached to a church.
Yeah.
A cemetery is a business,
Hmm.
and it is usually owned by someone that has set it up. I don't know how long this cemetery had been in these people's family, but they walked away and left it. And see, you can
Okay.
see from this picture that was taken just recently, because I watched someone that actually had gone and taken a tour, and you can see how this was the older part of the cemetery. So it's still there's parts of it that just don't get the attention because it's a huge place and only volunteers are working on it.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, I'll be honest with y'all, I don't mind going to a cemetery. They're very peaceful, beautiful, and I love the history. Sometimes when you walk through and see the tombstones and um, even the artwork. So,
There's a lot of history.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah, a
history.
lot of history in graveyards.
Exactly. And the ghoul, he violated it. And so Mount Moriah had actually been reporting burglaries since early November of 2025, saying that graves had been either desecrated or burglarized. They found holes knocked into mausoleum doors, doors were pried open. So the police were aware. And they even had what they call subterranean burials, where there's the slab on top of the ground, and then they put, you know, people down below instead of just putting dirt on top. And so, like this one, you can see how it was slid off. And and so they are either knocked off the ground, pried up. Investigators discovered that the ghoul's phone, like I said, had been pinging a lot in this area. And the police alleged that the graveyard was the source of 25, at least, of the bodies in his possession. Officials claim he burglarized or desecrated 26 mausoleums and underground burial sites at Mount Moriah alone. But his crimes aren't just limited to this cemetery. They think he might have even stole remains from cemeteries across Delaware County, Philadelphia, Luzerne County over several years because all the stuff that he had, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Um,
he had way too much stuff for just this to be a one shot
yeah,
deal.
yeah. Therapist, and that's exactly the point is, if you had loved ones, you know, and in a cemetery that got deserted, how would you feel?
Hmm.
And here's some picture. He put this picture up. He really was leaning into the darkness. But how they finally caught him, this is gonna blow your mind. Detectives had set up cameras at Mount Moriah Cemetery to figure out who was doing this, okay? And when they finally caught him, they caught him red-handed on January 6th of this year. Um, okay, Sleuthy, see you later, sweetheart. He had a burlap sack, a crowbar, a rather large screwdriver. Every state has provisions now in their criminal statutes that define burglary tools. That's important because that facilitates theft and burglary. Even Ted Bundy, you guys, one of his charges was possession of burglary tools. So this is serious. This is some of the charges they got him on. Now he's 34 years old, and there are questions about what his middle name is. Was it Christian or Christ? Which we're just calling him the Ghoul of Efrat,
Hmm.
Pennsylvania. But when they caught him, he had human remains in the burlap bag. He had the skull of two children. Children. And then when they got to his vehicle, his back seat of his car, there were other skulls and legs and femurs. So they caught him leaving this with these children and human skulls. And so, I mean, just have his car parked there with bones and skulls visible. This guy was with the brain trust. That's for sure. Let's just be honest.
No
Now,
morality.
none, none. Now, I listened. Hey, therapist, that could be something to it. You know, I listened to Joseph Scott Morgan from Body Bags, and we all love Scott Morgan. That would be my dream interview if I could ever get him to come on the show. But I listened to him speak on several different shows this morning and yesterday, and I wanted to bring out some of his perspective because he is a forensic professor at Jacksonville State University. And he looked into this case and said something that really stopped me cold. He said this was almost industrial scale when you think of what all they found. Industrial scale grave robbing. So, like I said, it was like he was going into Sam's Club or Costco. All he was seeing was dollar signs when he was looking at these mausoleums. He wasn't just a disturbed individual acting on impulse. He was running a business operation.
Hmm.
Okay, think about that. This was all for money, greed. Now, when Joseph Scott saw the Instagram feed, because his Instagram feed is really gross. This is just one picture with him in a skull. I'm not going to show the rest. It was just scrolling down of skulls and different body parts, and I'm not going to do that. But this guy, Joseph Scott Morgan, said he was a salesman. He's putting it out there with this really eerie gothic thing going on. Oh, hey, by the way, you want to buy a skull? Except this is somebody's loved one. This is someone's mother, father, child, and they're just reduced to merchandise
Hmm.
on social media. Julie saying neck tattoo is always a bad sign. That was one of his claims is that they only arrested him because he was tattooed. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
leaving you're leaving in the middle of the night a cemetery with a burlap bag, a crowbar, and a screwdriver and remains in the bag in your car, and that's why they arrested you? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well,
Um,
selective memory. I.
yeah, that could be. Now, when the investigators searched the ghoul's house, he lives in a duplex. Can you imagine being his neighbor? Ugh. And a storage unit. Now he told them, um, "Oh, therapist you know is married to a neck tattoo.
Ooh.
Hope it's a nice one. It's a pretty one. And I hope he's not out there going to cemeteries. I don't think he would be. You wouldn't let him, therapist, you know." But so here's this lovely little duplex that he was living in with his fiance. And he had a storage unit, which he told them, "Oh, you don't need to check the storage unit. I just use that for my leftover stuff." They checked, and guess what? They found 8 bodies. So, they're not going to believe a thing this man says. Um, but one of the detectives actually called it a horror movie come to life. He said they found decomposing bodies hanging in the basement, along with hundreds of bones scattered everywhere.
Yikes.
They said the remains, he emphasized he was looking at probably upward of 500 individual elements. And when we say remains, that's not total intact skeletons. We're talking a femur here, a humerus here, parts of hands, mummified remains, rows upon rows upon rows of skulls. They go on and on. Skulls were displayed on shelves like trophies, mummified hands and feet, which um, Dr. Scott said that is normal, that can happen, but they can also, if it is someone that hasn't been there as long, they can also speed that process up. Yes, not humorous. Oh,
Oh my.
yes. But the skeletal remains, they said, were hanging in various states of decay. So it wasn't just he wasn't just getting the old ones that were just skeletal. These weren't ancient archaeology finds. These are remains included bodies that still had pacemakers attached, okay? Meaning they were recently deceased. Others were over 100 years old because this is a very old cemetery. So this isn't some collector who got carried away. This is someone that was running an operation. And that's something I want to talk about because that bothers me. The
Yeah,
ghoul
it
had,
just sounded like he had shelves, you know,
yeah,
like you said before. He was running a Costco.
yeah, exactly. And he has a fiance who's living with him. Now, I'm sorry, you're telling
Oh,
me this woman didn't know what was going on? He's got
not
over
hardly.
hundreds of sets of human remains in this house in all different states because remember, we also have a pacemaker, so that means that body was newer. You have all these different kind of parts. The smell alone would be horrendous of a decomposing body. And this is the back of his house. And this is the garage, and they said that you had to reach the basement by going through the garage. And one of the reporters actually said that I saw an interview with a neighbor who said one day he was walking by the house and he noticed all the flies hanging out behind at this garage. Now, flies are not going to be coming after skeletal remains that are hundreds of years old. They're coming for decomposing
Oh yeah,
bodies.
definitely.
So, can you imagine the smell in this house? I mean, ugh. And to get to the basement, you went through the garage and all those it just I can't imagine what those poor police officers and the CSI techs went through, you know. So, she had to know something. She couldn't say she didn't. Now, I don't know if she's turned state evidence on him. Let's hope so. Um, therapist, yes, you do know you can vouch for a fake skeleton.
Now, this was a girlfriend or a wife?
Fiance,
Fiance.
his fiance.
Hmm.
Now, she had to know that there were some red flags shooting up, you know. So why isn't she facing charges or is she in on the case? Let's hope she's turning evidence. Um, I mean, that's what I'm hoping. But if we talk logistics for a second, because it's important, some of these mausoleum slabs, they weigh hundreds of pounds, you guys.
Mhm.
You can see this one is off. It's not square. So see, that's one more than likely that they had moved. Um, so we're talking about concrete and stone. One person couldn't have moved these all on his own. So, how exactly was the ghoul by himself moving all these massive slabs? Prying everything open. He actually said that he was repelling down into some of these crypts, like he's Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. You know,
Wow.
he had to have some help at least some of the time. I don't know if you get someone to go with you and like move a bunch of the slabs to where then you can go back. Now, this is one of the mausoleums that was actually it's the Baker Mausoleum, and they said at least 16 bodies they think came out of this one. It had stairs that you go up, and when you get up, there's this hole that they found that he had broken into, and that's how he was rappelling down. I mean, good lord. Um, so
Rather
all these
revolting, I would say.
yes, I mean, he's going in there and touching these things. I mean,
Mm,
what is wrong with you? And Dr. Morgan also said there's no way under heaven that this guy's doing this himself. He says, I think other people are probably connected to this. And I agree with him.
mhm.
You know, I just can't see him working this just totally on his own.
Well, unless the guy had a backhoe or a a forklift or something like that. Yeah, he had some help.
Yeah. And he did not have that kind of equipment. Ken doesn't know any grave robbing experts. That's good, Ken. We don't need to call for help for you then. Um, so I do think he had some help. You know, it could be that him and somebody walked through and they loosened things to where he could come back another night and get things. Um, but we're just scratching the surface of this investigation and the charges. Oh, the ghoul is facing over 570 criminal charges. At least 100 counts of abuse of a corpse, 26 counts of burglary, 26 counts of criminal trespass, 100 counts of receiving stolen property, 26 counts of intentional desecration of public monuments, plus multiple counts of theft. And he's currently in the George W. Hill Correctional Facility on $1 million cash bail. And his preliminary hearing will be January 20th coming up. But let's stop. I want to go a little bit further here, and we need to talk about something that might surprise you, that there is a world of oddity collectors. Okay, and that's what they call it because not everyone who collects unusual items is a criminal. In fact, they say most aren't. And people who collect oddities are often ordinary individuals, despite stereotypes like him. And they also said he also had a lot of taxidermy and animals too. So,
Mm.
but many collectors of items like antique taxidermy, ethically sourced bones, or preserved specimens are regular folks, not necessarily goths or members of any particular subculture. They're just driven by the fascination with the unusual, historical curiosity, and a desire for unique self expression. And this tradition actually has deep historical roots, you guys. The Victorian era is where the educated and sophisticated collected what were called Wunderkammer. These are cabinets of curiosity. These collections featured scientific, anatomical, and natural items such as skeletons, preserved specimens. It was considered a mark of sophistication and intellectual pursuit. Today, legitimate enthusiasts collect antique taxidermy, ethically sourced bones, wet specimens preserved in liquid, and unique art. I mean, we all know like Charles Manson had some weird art he sent out. Um, so they find these items usually legally and ethically operated. There's specialized shops for it. It's about identity and self-expression. And their collections become extensions of their personality, interest, and values. These genuine fascinations with the strange, the morbid, or scientifically unique are driven by a historical interest in nature or a contemporary appreciation for dark aesthetics. You know, so that kind of gives you idea of some of the people that do delve into the oddity market. But the critical distinction here, you guys, is the legitimate collectors source their items ethically and legally. They're not robbing graves. They're not stealing from families. Um,
Yeah, but they have to get them somewhere.
yeah, well, and that's there are those people that I guess they get them from like schools that have been donated bodies that after a time they're done with them. Now,
Mm.
I've had several relatives that have donated their bodies to science. We know that, like I said, schools get them. The body farm gets bodies, you know, for scientific research and things like this. But some of the information I found is a lot of these places will tell you that when they're done with an item, they're supposed to cremate it. What I'm seeing is I think some of these people go ahead and sell the item on. Um,
So they're not exactly squeaky clean either.
well, I don't know. I guess it depends on what the agreement was when you donated.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if the laws are totally and like Ken says, state laws differ. And I don't know if there are enough laws really that go over the different parts of this, you know. And some people have said, well, I was a third party buyer, meaning he bought from somebody else that gave them the paperwork saying this was ethically, given,
Mhm.
and then they find out it wasn't. So some of them are not desecrating sacred spaces. But we have to ask, how did we get here? How do we go from Victorian cabinets of curiosities to the
Um,
ghoul robbing over 100 graves? You know, um, the demand for these unusual items, it's really created, like OnlyFans said earlier, a thriving market. And where there's demand and money, there's always going to be someone that's going to cross the line. John Balls, describes himself as a human remains collector, explained that while there are no laws explicitly prohibiting the buying and selling of human remains in Pennsylvania, the market continues to grow. Pennsylvania, you might want to look into some laws on that, okay? Just saying. You might want to.
it's a possibility.
Um, yeah, just a possibility. Um, yeah, that was one of the things therapists, they are going for burglary and his burglary tools. Um, but the collectability of these items, it drives up the price. So when legitimate sources become too expensive, some people go to the black market. And on this post that was in June, he says, "Still alive, life has a way of drop kicking us into change, and now living alone in the mountains, riding Harleys and slinging skulls." Isn't that just a dreamboat there?
Oh, yeah.
And somebody was his fiance. Just saying. The ghoul was linked to Facebook groups. Yes, there are Facebook groups where human bones are bought and sold. These groups are usually invitation only and often move around, which to me suggests they know their activities will be frowned upon by a lot of people.
Mhm.
But it's not an insulated case. In 2022, a human remains trafficking network was exposed involving bones stolen from the Harvard Medical School and an Arkansas mortuary. Now, Jeremy Polly of I can't even pronounce that, Susquehanna County, I don't know, admitted to buying remains knowing they were stolen and selling many of them because he wanted the ordeal over with. Because he said he actually didn't know they were stolen, but he just said he did so that they would get the case over. He's actually scheduled to go to jail or to prison for his 6-year prison sentence starting this week. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, and he had Dreamboat too.
Mhm.
Paulie knew the ghoul. They followed each other on social media and moved in the same circles. And when he got caught up in this thing with Harvard in that Arkansas mortuary, the ghoul actually was helping sell Paulie's museum collection that his ex-wife had taken from him. And he had tried to reach out to the ghoul to ask him about, hey, this stuff belongs to me, but they didn't get the reply he wanted. So he kind of feels like karma is getting the ghoul back. It's like, and he's got very strange views on having body parts and human remains. Um, my thought is, would you want are you so into it that you take your relatives' remains and put them on display? If not, then don't mess with somebody else's. That's just my feelings. Hey. But here's where it gets even bigger. Dr. Morgan noted that the ghoul allegedly made one sale where he transported a skull from Pennsylvania to Chicago and sold it there. So that's interstate theft of stolen property.
That's
That's
FBI
federal
stuff.
territory.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Yeah.
And that's kind of terrifying because where else have these samples gone? We're not just talking Pennsylvania. This could be a multi-state operation. So the FBI might be building a case too. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Dr. Morgan did highlight a crucial aspect of the ghoul's how he selected his targets. He said the more opulent a mausoleum, the higher the probability of recovering valuable jewelry because wealthy people were buried with it. So, if the ghoul could verify who was buried in these tombs, which, cemeteries have records, that could be a selling point. Saying this is the skull of an industrialist's wife, show pictures of the ornate marble mausoleum with scroll work, and charge premium prices. Now, Dr. Morgan said recently he did an historical exhumation in his career. He's done several, but he did one recently. And they did the exhumation of a plantation owner's wife who died of typhoid during the typhoid epidemic in 1850s, the same era as many of the Mount Moriah burials. When they removed her from her lead casket, it had glass panels on it. And he said her hair still had was she still had her hair, and she had a beautiful whalebone comb. She had solid gold stick pins in her collar and a sterling silver brooch with precious stones. So he said you can reap a harvest in these older, you know, coffins.
Yeah.
And that's precisely what this guy was doing because they actually said there was jewelry and things found in his home. So he was harvesting the dead for profit and also for their items, you know? Now, there was another case back in New York, just to show you how widespread this was. And this was back in 2005. I remember this one. It was revealed that there was a tissue recovery firm called Biomedical Tissue Services, and re- ugh, they were running a body snatching operation at funeral homes. Yes, they were literally cutting bones out of bodies during preparation for burial or cremation. They would replace the bones with PCV pipe so families wouldn't notice, and then sell the stolen tissue for dental implants and surgical procedures. One of their victims and how they kinda ended up getting caught was Alistair Cook. This man here, he was a famed British broadcaster, host of Masterpiece Theatre. He died at the age of 95 in March of 2004 from lung cancer. It had spread to his bones. The employees surgically removed bones, skin, and other tissues from his body before cremation. And this is where it gets sinister. They knew these tissues weren't suitable for transplant because of his age and the cancer. But what did they do? They committed fraud. They altered his death certificate saying he was 85 instead of 95, changed his death from cancer to heart attack, all so that the diseased tissue would appear suitable for medical use. Now, think about that.
Hmm.
They were knowingly implanting cancer contaminated bones into living patients. Some of the deceased had active diseases, and diseased tissues from those patients were being injected into people who needed legitimate medical procedures. The doctor involved in the operation was sentenced to life in prison and died there. The funeral director allegedly fell off a roof, though Cook's family and many others expressed outrage over the violation, and there remains unclear how many patients actually received diseased tissue. Now, this scandal was huge. And like I said, the contamination scope was from 2001 to 2005, 10,000 patients in the US and Canada received potentially contaminated tissue grafts, 25,000 tissue products across 50 states, international markets, 1,000 plus bodies illegally harvested without consent or proper screening. Now, the guy running it, the doctor that was running it, he was harvesting tissue from donors who failed to meet basic safety standards. Donors with cancer, HIV, hepatitis C, other infectious diseases. Death certificates forged to hide that ineligibility. No family consented to this. They were taking bone grafts, skin grafts, tendons, ligaments, all processed through 5 major tissue processors. They documented harm receipts, contracted serious illnesses, including some got HIV, hepatitis C, syphilis. So the FDA had to order a complete recall of all the products that went out from that place. But this isn't new. The trade in human remains for profit has been happening for decades
Hmm.
with devastating, potentially deadly consequences. The difference was the ghoul, at least it wasn't a funeral home, you know? He was breaking into graves with a crowbar, committing burglary and desecrating cemeteries.
Yeah,
He
funeral
operated
home you would think would be on the up and up, but
yeah,
not having to worry about them doing something illegal.
right. "Hey, Barbara Mustang, good to see you." Yeah, exactly. But he's just ugh, this dude, he was going after the graves and stealing from the dead in their final resting places and selling them to unsuspecting markets.
Yeah, lack of morals.
Yeah. But everybody in these skull selling Facebook groups, they're now panicking because if you bought anything from the ghoul, it was 100% not what he claimed it was. They weren't ethically sourced remains for medical study or antique specimens with documented provenance. These were stolen from families, ripped from their final resting places. And this is where the line is crossed when fascination with oddities turns into criminal exploitation,
Mm.
when the desire to collect overrides basic human decency and respect for the dead. Investigators are treating this with the seriousness it deserves. One official says they matter. They were human beings. We treated them as we would any crime victim. And we're using every investigative means. And they're now working to identify the remains found and hope to return them to their families. Can you imagine getting that call, learning your loved one's grave was robbed, their remains were stolen, and their remains are on display like some collectible in somebody's home? Another thing Dr. Morgan emphasized with authorities now faced with identifying all these hundreds, if not thousands, of body parts. These aren't just evidence. They're people who have lived, who had brothers, sisters, families, lives. They're found in a man's basement,
Yeah,
treated like inventory.
that's what I was gonna touch on too. Is it they have to find out not only I mean obviously they can do DNA, but they have to know where they came from. It's just they don't.
And that ta-
It's not like they have a nameplate or anything.
and that takes time and money.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do. And some of these, let's face it, some of these graves are over 100 years old. Are their family members still alive?
Hmm.
So the volume alone makes this investigation really complex. So we're talking about graves from 1855 to recent deaths and the forensic work that's going to have to go into each individual because not all of them were the skeletons all together. So I think he took some of them apart. Will they be able to put them all back together? See, these are the things we don't know to provide some measure of justice and dignity to the families and to these
Hmm.
victims. This is going to take years. It's not going to be something that's going to be done quick, you guys. And here's something that people aren't talking about enough is the environmental and health dangers. Dr. Morgan really brought this out and he focused on this. He said the level of hazard in this situation is astronomical. He said, I hope the people that worked the scene had something covering their mouths and faces because just being down there in that basement and inhaling anything, he says, we're talking toxic exposure
Hmm.
with serious long term health consequences. He said human remains, especially older ones, pose biohazard risks. Bodies embalmed using Victorian era practices contained formaldehyde, arsenic, and other toxic metals. Now, pacemakers can have radioactivity materials. They had mercury from dental fillings, lead from old casket materials. So this isn't just grave robbing, you guys. This is a hazmat situation. Pathogens don't always die with the body. Anthrax spores can survive for decades.
Mhm.
Tuberculosis bacteria can remain viable in preserved tissue. Anyone who purchased from the ghoul thinking they got ethically sourced specimens, you might have a disease ridden, contaminated remain in your home. And if you have children in your home, you need to be thinking about that. And he warned everybody that the state level that the EPA is probably going to have to get involved in this. That even the ghoul's neighbors run the risk of being contaminated by this stuff since he lived in a duplex. And it's just not his residential neighbors. There was a storage unit where he kept remains. So that means that facility, the workers, the renters, anybody that had their family heirlooms or baby clothes, important documents, all potentially exposed to heavy metals and decomposing human remains filled with Victorian era embalming chemicals.
I can just imagine because yeah, I mean, when we worked on some of the older locomotives, they had to have hazmat, folks come out and clean up the asbestos before
Yeah.
the guys could do any work. And to think how much worse of a situation this would be, um, that is just mind blowing.
Yeah. And you're right, Ken. It's hard to understand because and Dr. Morgan even talked about if he was cleaning up some of these bodies in the home, like tools that he was using, because he said if you've ever been to an autopsy where they've had to use a bone saw and cut in, he said that dust gets everywhere. That's why the people that are in they wear gear. They have something over their mouths, something over their eyes. I don't know if he was taking these precautions, you know? His fiance needs to worry. She was in that home. The buyers are at risk, their families.
Most likely he wasn't if he had bodies hanging in the
Yeah,
basement.
yeah, So this is actually even a public health crisis wrapped in a criminal investigation. Something to think about. Now, John R. Schumel Jr. is the president of the Friends of Mount Moriah Cemetery, and he announced they're bolstering their security to address the violations. But you got to remember, this group is a volunteer group. They've expedited an expansion of their surveillance cameras across the cemetery. They've begun repairing fences and are planning random patrols to deter unauthorized activity because they're afraid someone's going to hear about this and think, okay, well, let me go give it a try. And here's the reality, they've spent $20,000 on repairs to target mausoleums and grave sites, and then they got quoted another 9,000 for materials to repair one section of fencing. So they are seeking donations. Mount Moriah Cemetery, if you feel you would like to donate, you can go on their website. So this is, it's not just the emotional, but there's also a financial aspect to what the cemetery is going through. And like I told you, back in the day, they used to call grave robbers resurrectionists, because what they used to do in Burke and Hare, the case in 19th century Scotland is one of the famous ones. They actually resorted to deleting people. Fowler, you'd said, well, he hadn't deleted anybody. These guys did because they ran out of bodies. If you ever want me to cover that, I did some research on them. That's an interesting story to tell. But the modern grave robbery often targets, archaeological sites for treasures. And truthfully, the Ghoul's case, he was feeding a black market for human remains. It's a serious crime. It destroys cultural heritage, erases history, and causes deep distress in communities. Now, I think he's going to get a very severe sentence. If he was smart, he would take some kind of a plea deal. But they need to really ensure people aren't trading in body parts online like baseball cards. I mean, that's just I'm sorry, that to me, that's ridiculous. But it goes beside just the bones and the jewelry because what he's really stolen is peace. And like Dr. Morgan, I loved when he said, people go to a cemetery to visit their loved one for solace. He said, he himself enjoys walking through a cemetery for that, to look at the structures and the beauty that's there of some of these old cemeteries. But he said, imagine a man who's just lost his wife. He goes to sit on a bench by her grave, contemplating his life with her, and now that peace is destroyed because the ghoul has robbed everyone who thought their loved ones were secure. He violated a sacred trust, and some things are sacrosanct, and this is a line we don't cross. It's everyone at home who buries their loved one anywhere who has this specter rise, wondering if the cemetery is secure. Is my family protected? So this case represents a fundamental violation of human dignity. These weren't artifacts, they were people, children, veterans, community members who deserve to rest in peace. Their families deserve to know their loved ones would be honored and protected. Instead, the ghoul treated them like commodities, like objects to collect, display, and profit. He took legitimate interest in the unusual and the historical that many people share and twisted it into something dark and criminal. And we have been seeing a case lately where there's more deletions where body parts are missing, and it just makes you ill. And people that are selling supposed for medical purposes, it just makes you wonder what's really going on. So the conversation about the way we view the dead, how we fail to memorialize them and honor them and protect them. Dr. Morgan said they literally do not have a voice any longer, which is precisely why what the ghoul did is so unforgivable. And this investigation, it's going to continue. This is going to take some time. So we're going to have to watch it and pay attention and see what happens. I hope he gets a very long prison sentence because this community is traumatized. A historical cemetery that was built on the inclusion and dignity has been totally violated. Mustang, you're right. People can't even rest in peace,
Nope.
you know, and that's ridiculous. And like I asked earlier, they wouldn't want their loved one on somebody's shelf. But let's go ahead and look at our missing people for tonight. Remember to stay alert. You can save a life. Remember the faces in your community. Some left voluntarily, but danger keeps them from coming home. Others never had the choice to leave because we know human trafficking and missing person cases happen everywhere. Victims often go unnoticed, and often they're hiding in plain sight. And that person you see could be someone's missing family member. So trust your instincts. If you recognize someone from today's cases or noticed anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately and don't assume someone else is going to do it. If you really hate contacting the police, we have our tip line, which is tips, the number 4, trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. We'll pass information along. But you have the power to save a life. Use it. Our first one is Ariana Smart. She's 14 years old. She's been missing since the beginning of January. They didn't have an exact date, from Anchorage, Alaska. She has brown hair or brown eyes, black hair. She's 4 foot tall and weighs 75 pounds. She was last known to be in the 2100 block of C Street in Anchorage. Any information, contact the Anchorage Police Department at dispatch at 311, option 1, or 907-786-8900, option 0. The case number is 25-39212. Or if she's in your area, call the local police. Next, we have Carlos Robledo. And I'm
Robledo.
probably Robledo. Thank you, Doc. He's 14 years old. He's been missing since December 30th out of Wichita, Kansas. Chris had asked me to put him up here. He's 5'5", weighs 120 pounds, has black hair and brown eyes. He was wearing a black jacket and dark jeans with white Nike shoes. If you see Carlos, contact 911. That was the information we were given. Next, we have Jonathan Frenchman. He's 40 years old and was last seen October 19th of 2025. They reported him missing on November 5th or November 2nd. His last location was Cochin, Saskatchewan, Canada. He was with a known friend and family member in the Musama First Nation, which I'm sorry I butchered that, located about 35 kilometers north of North Battleford. Jonathan is described as 5'7", 180 pounds, brown eyes, long black hair. He's known to travel to Thunderchild First Nation area, but his current whereabouts are unknown. Contact Battleford's RCMP at 310 RCMP. You can also contact the Crime Stoppers 1-800-222-TIPS or 8477. The family is very upset that they feel like he did not get the attention when he was reported missing right away. So let's hope Jonathan gets found soon. Next, we have Megan Cassidy Curley. She's 17 years old. She's been missing since January 13th, you guys, from Rapid City, South Dakota. She has black eyes, her black hair. It looks actually like in the picture, she's got some red tint to it.
Yeah, she
So I don't know.
She had to dye it at some point.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's the most recent picture or not. She has brown eyes. Contact Rapid City Police at 605-394-4131. And the NICMEC number for her is 207-0377. 17 years old. Let's get her found. So I want to let y'all know that we have to remember that every killer, depends on our silence. Please don't give it to him. If you know something, speak up, because it wasn't a mannequin. It never is. And remember, somebody always knows something. Somebody always does. And our hashtag is silence is betrayal. If you have a story or you think needs our attention, please contact us at trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. We appreciate all of you for taking the time to come hang out with us. If you enjoy our work, you can buy us a coffee. Fala's put it out there. We appreciate it. But you can support us just by watching, sharing our videos, subscribing, hitting the like button. Those algorithms need to work behind the screens. Anything that helps get it out there, get the little flashy hearts going up in the chat. For some reason, they say that helps. But until next time, you guys stay informed. Yes, and comment after the live is over. Therapist, you're right. And I appreciate that. We want you guys to stay informed, stay compassionate, keep seeking truth, keep demanding justice, never stop speaking up. If there's someone you want us to interview, let us know. If you've got a connection with someone you think would be good for the show, we're always open. And we are a platform for people to tell their stories. And we are working on stories behind the scene. So say goodnight, Doc.
Good night, Doc.
We love you all. And remember, criminals never stop, so neither do we. Until next time, you keep fighting for justice. We're going to see you on Thursday night where we do our MMIP cases as TJU presents Justice After Dark. Ciao, everyone.
Midnight shovel breaks the clay in forgotten cemeteries where the old folks lie. Ropes and harness, dead of night, rebelling down the crypt without a light. Prying open marble doors where the wealthy dead were stored. Your mother's ring, your father's gold, but it ain't just jewelry that gets sold. They're taking bodies, bones and all to private collectors down the hall, digging graves in potter's fields and descending crypts for higher yields. Victorian coffins pried apart someone's great grandmother's sacred heart. Brass nameplates, wedding bands, skulls and femurs changing hands. 6 feet down or crypt sealed tight, both get violated at night. Digging up the dead for dollars, raffling it into crypts like spies, selling bones to macabre buyers, someone's daughter, someone's sire. Bodies sold when the looting's done. What's wrong with you? What have we become? Grandfather's skull in a rich man's bowl. How do we get here? Lost our souls. Harness tight, descending slowly into family crypts below. Generations stacked in stone, now their inventory to belong. Some graves need shovels, quick and rough. Others sealing crypts need different stuff, but both end up the same way on collectors' shelves for sick display. Private buyers, anonymous sales, skeletons shipped through the mail. Authentic Victorian specimen, past somebody's next of kin. Medical oddities, curiosity shops, the body trade never stops. Dark web auctions, cash exchange, great great grandpa's bones rearranged. How do we get here? Where death's a marketplace, where someone's loved one is the decor in your space. Dug from graves or crypts below, tibias and rib cages show. Mounted on your wall with pride, tell me how we justify. Shovel work for potters' graves, rope and harness for the crypts they save. eBay listings, antique human skull, Facebook groups, bone collectors pull. Instagram posts, new acquisition here. Reddit threads asking where to buy. Private collectors pay thousands for your ancestor, torn from the ground or lowered from crypts without a sound. They take the jewelry first, that's fast cash. Then they come back for the body stash. Femurs sell for 300 each. Skulls with teeth within their reach. Complete skeletons, premium price to collectors who think death looks nice. Doesn't matter if you're dug or descended, your sacred rest gets violated, ended. Digging up the dead for dollars, rappelling in a crypts like spies. Wedding rings and tibias too. Body sold collectibles. And death is a millionaire